Each month at the Ruth Bancroft Garden, we put together a list of plants that are in bloom in that particular month. And we print this out as a sheet and hand it out to visitors who come to the garden. So in this video, we're going to go through the plants that are on the December What's in Bloom. And so this doesn't obviously include every plant in the garden that's in bloom, but a selection of plants that are in bloom for at least a good part of the month. In order to be on the sheet, they have to have an extended blooming period. So let's see what's on for December. Salvia is a very large genus in the mint family, and there are salvias that come from all kinds of different habitats. Some of them are desert salvias, and that's the case with this one here. It's a hybrid of Salvia mojavensis, and that takes its name from the Mojave Desert. So it's a great plant for a dry garden with these beautiful purple-blue flowers and in glorious bloom right now, Salvia mojavensis hybrid. At the Ruth Bancroft Garden, we have an awful lot of aloes. Aloes come mostly from Africa, but also some from Madagascar and from the Arabian Peninsula. This is one of the Arabian ones, Aloe rubroviolacea. So it's just about to open. It'll probably be open within the next day or two. And this is a wonderful aloe that forms a clump. It does make a stem, but the stem doesn't rise up. It grows along the ground, and then as it makes offsets, it gets to be an ever larger clump. Red-orange flowers, and December is a big month for this aloe, Aloe rubroviolacea. We have lots of aloes from South Africa at the Ruth Bancroft Garden, and a prominent one is this one, Aloe Arborescens. It comes from a wide swath of South Africa and neighboring Zimbabwe as well, and it has a number of different color forms, and this is the yellow color form. The yellow form usually is the earliest to come into flower for us here at the garden. It's got yellow teeth as well, yellower than the ordinary red forms do, and you can see it makes an awful lot of flowers when it comes into bloom. Aloe Arborescens is very easy to grow. It forms a large clump and even can get taller than 6 feet in time with many, many heads. It's commonly grown in California and really a delight for color in the winter. Aloes are in the Asphodelaceae or the asphodel family. We refer to plants in the genus Arctostaphylos as manzanitas. Manzana means apple in Spanish, and manzanita means little apple. And they do have fruits that are edible, that are like little tiny apples. There is a species, Arctostaphylos manzanita, but we refer to all the species in general as manzanitas. This one here is Arctostaphylos refugioensis. It comes from the Santa Ynez Mountains near Santa Barbara. Like many manzanitas, it's native to California. We have more different kinds of manzanita here in California than anywhere else in the world. And this is a fine example. A lot of them do bloom in the winter. Their flowers are always in the white to pink range. This one with white flowers is a fine early bloomer, Arctostaphylos refugioensis. The ice plant family, Isoaceae, is a very large group of succulents, but very concentrated geographically, most of them coming from southern Africa. We really appreciate them in our gardens because of the color that they bring, the burst of color, and a lot of them do bloom in the wintertime, including this one, which is Ruschia marianae. Now, it's not a very typical Russchia because of how red the flowers are. Usually Ruschias are more in the pink to purple range, or magenta, and not as red as this one. But like many of the ice plants, this one is slow to open its flowers, usually not until midday or so where the flowers fully open. So here we're filming this in the morning. These are still a little bit on the closed side, but you can see the beautiful red color of it and the blue-green finger-like leaves, which we see in a lot of mesems. Ruschia marianae is not common in cultivation, but we find it does very well for us here at the Bancroft Garden, so it deserves to be grown more widely. Ruschia marianae. There are many aloes native to South Africa, and in some places where two species grow together, you'll have natural hybrids. And that has happened with Aloe Arborescens and Aloe ferox. Both spectacular amazing flowering aloes from South Africa. And this plant here, Aloe Tangerine, is a selected form of that cross between Aloe ferox and Aloe Arborescens. So from Aloe Arborescens, it makes offsets and makes a clump, which Aloe ferox does not do. And from Aloe ferox, it has a branching inflorescence, a candelabra of flowers, which Aloe Arborescens does not do. It's a very wonderful combination of characters of two species. The cultivar Tangerine, with its orangey flowers, was first introduced by the Huntington Gardens in Southern California. And we are very pleased that it does well for us here in Northern California. And it's just beginning to come into bloom now, not quite open yet, but we have pictures to show you what the flowers look like when it is open. Aloe Tangerine. Aloe is the largest genus in the asphodel family, Asphodelaceae, and there are many, many species. Of these, the largest and most taxonomically difficult group is the so-called maculate aloes. Maculate means spotted, and yes, most of these aloes do have spots on the leaves, but so do a lot of other aloes. What really sets the maculate group apart is the flowers, and they have a marked swelling at the base of each flower, and that trait goes through from one species to another. This one here is Aloe fosteri from northeastern South Africa, and in full bloom in November, December, with a very tall inflorescence, lots of branches, and very beautiful flowers. Aloe fosteri. The Crassulaceae is a family that's commonly called the stonecrop family. And this is because so many members of the family grow in rocky places or on rock outcrops. And they do very well in rock gardens as a result. The family Crassulaceae takes its name from the genus Crassula. And that genus is very concentrated in South Africa, where it has many, many species. Some of these are quite familiar to us, like the jade tree, Crassula ovata. Others less familiar, but equally wonderful in the garden, like this one here. This is Crassula sarcocaulis, meaning thick stem. And both it and the jade tree are really on the large size for a Crassula. Many of the others are only a couple of inches high and not nearly as big as this one. But this one is in full bloom right now with these little tiny white flowers. Each flower quite tiny, but many of them. And it's a cold-tolerant plant that does very well in our garden here in Walnut Creek. Crassula sarcocaulis. The genus Gasteria is a group all from southern Africa, and they belong to the asphodel family and are related to the aloes. This one here is Gasteria acinacifolia. The main name means that the leaves are like a scimitar, and it's really on the large size for a Gasteria. Most of them are smaller than this. Gasteria flowers, like aloe flowers, are tubular and have nectar inside, suited for a bird to probe its beak into and get the nectar out. But unlike aloes, Gasterias have dangling flowers, as you can see here. Gasteria acinacifolia comes from quite near the coast in the southern part of South Africa. And in nature, it really doesn't get very cold, but we are happy to report that here at the Ruth Bancroft Garden, this has endured temperatures down to 20 degrees without injury, so it's much hardier than it really needs to be for where it grows. We're happy that it does so well and that it flowers so much for us. Gasteria acinacifolia. We have aloes here at the Bancroft Garden from various places, from South Africa, from Arabia, from Madagascar, but there are also a lot of aloes that occur in East Africa. Now, not a lot of these are grown widely in California because they're so near to the equator that a lot of them don't have good cold tolerance. But this one does. This is Aloe schelpei from Ethiopia. We've had it here in the garden for many years. The buds are more on the red side and the open flowers turning orange to yellow-orange. Really a beautiful fall blooming aloe in November and December. Aloe schelpei. Plants in the genus Echeveria are commonly known as hens and chicks, and they are very widely grown, very popular both as potted plants and as garden plants because of their beautiful flowers and their beautiful rosettes of leaves, which themselves look almost like flowers. This one here is a hybrid of Echeveria lilacina from northern Mexico. And like many Echeverias, the flower comes up and then bends over like a shepherd's crook at the tip. The flowers start at the bottom and work their way up gradually over the course of a month or two. This one is not a prolific one, but some of the others do form a lot of offsets, and thus the name hens and chicks. Echeveria lilacina hybrid. Mangave is the term we use for a cross between a manfreda and an agave. So manfreda and agave are closely related, and you can cross them with each other. Manfredas tend to have flexible leaves, sometimes even deciduous, and oftentimes they have spots on the leaves. Agaves are much more robust and have stiff leaves, and they don't have spots. So you can cross them together, and there are really a lot of mangaves on the market nowadays. This is one that I made myself. It's called Blue Fountain, and it's a hybrid between actually a hybrid manfreda and agave parasana from North Mexico. And it does have little spots on the leaves, but very subtle. Its really strong point is the beautiful fountain-like way that the leaves emerge, and here it is in bloom. The large bracts on the flower stalk come from the agave parent, Agave parasana, and it's just starting to bloom up there on the top of the stalk. Like other plants in this group, the rosette is monocarpic. In other words, it stores up energy for a long time and then puts everything into the stalk, and that's the end of it. But because manfredas make offsets and the clump continues, we expect this one to do that as well, and thus we'll have pups coming out to continue after this one is done. Mangave Blue Fountain. This shrub with the red flowers is in the family Plantagenaceae. Its name is Russelia equisetiformis. The species name equisetiformis means like an equisetum or a horsetail, and that's because the leaves aren't prominent. You mostly just see all these thin stems coming up like a horsetail. The bright red flowers are produced over a long period in the summer and into the fall, and so it provides color over a good part of the year. And it's a very easy plant to grow. It comes from southern Mexico and Guatemala. Russelia equisetiformis. This aloe comes from Kenya. Its name is Aloe Kidongensis. The ending ensis means coming from, so Kidong is a place name in Kenya. Some of its relatives are much more commonly grown, such as Aloe elgonica and Aloe dowii. This one, for whatever reason, is not commonly seen in cultivation, but it's really quite a wonderful aloe, and coming into bloom at the end of November and into December provides a nice jolt of red-orange at a time of the year when bright colors are welcome. It forms a clump like its relatives do, and the plant seems to be quite easy to grow, but probably not all that cold tolerant. Aloe cheranganiensis. The genus Yucca belongs to the asparagus family. Well, let's say the subfamily Agavaceae, or the agave subfamily within the asparagus family. So these plants have white flowers, as you see here, and they are widely distributed in the United States and in Mexico. Some of the yuccas are tall and tree-like, like the Joshua tree, and other ones are just a stemless rosette, like the plains yucca, Yucca glauca. This one here is sort of a compromise. It does make a stem, but not a very tall one. We've had it in the garden for decades, and we got it without a name, and we still don't know what its name is. It's in flower here at the beginning of December, when no other yucca in the garden is in flower, and it consistently flowers late in the autumn every year. So it would be nice to have a name to it, but we don't have one. At any rate, like other yuccas, it has creamy white flowers in a cluster that comes out at a certain time of the year, in this case very late in the year. We really value it for its flowering at a time when no other yuccas are in flower, and we would love to get a name on it. And when we do, we'll be glad to share it with you. Yucca species for now. Most agaves have big, wide, bold leaves, oftentimes with fierce teeth along the edge. And seeing this agave striata, most people don't think of an agave. They might think it's a yucca or something else. But it is indeed an agave, even if not a typical one. Not only is it atypical in having these narrow needle-like leaves, but it's also atypical in its flower color, which is green, not a usual color for an agave flower. But it's a delightful agave. It's a relatively common species in northern Mexico with a big distribution and has these relatively slender stalks with tubular flowers that could be green like this one or could be purple tinged. And its flowering season really isn't very specific, although it blooms more in the spring than any other time. It has sometimes flowers in the fall or winter like this one does. And so we welcome that because it gives us surprises at various times of the year. Agave striata. The entire cactus family comes from the Americas. And with most genera in the family, they either occur in South America or in North America, but not in both. An exception is Opuntia, the prickly pears. And this one here is Opuntia Tomentosa from Mexico. So the Opuntias occur from Argentina all the way up to Canada, a bigger distribution than any other group in the cactus family. But that's not true of a particular species. This species comes strictly from Mexico. It's one of the large growing Opuntias, and it makes lots and lots of flowers and then followed up with lots and lots of fruit, which you see on it now. So the fruits last for a very long time and give it color throughout the winter months. The name Tomentosa means hairy, and that's because the pads feel like velvet. They have little tiny hairs on them, and that's a unique feature of this species. It's also unusual in how many fruits it makes and how long those fruits last. So it really is a wonderful presence in the garden all through the winter. Opuntia Tomentosa. There are lots of plants in the genus Echeveria, and many of them come from Mexico. A lot of them have small, neat little rosettes of leaves, and we refer to them as hens and chicks. But some of them have much larger rosettes of big paddle-like leaves. An example is this one here, Echeveria gibiflora. It comes from the mountains of southern Mexico. And the plants in nature don't have leaves nearly as crinkly as these at the edges, but they've been bred to bring out that trait. And Echeveria Lace is a cultivar that has that to the max. And we really value it for its beautiful rosettes and also for its wonderful flowers, which come in the fall and last through the winter months. Echeveria Lace. Here we have an Echeveria with very large rosettes, big paddle-like leaves, named Echeveria Gigantea, because it's gigantic compared to most Echeverias. It's very closely related to Echeveria gibiflora from the same part of Mexico in the south. This one, however, doesn't have as crinkly of a leaf edge and has a pinker flower, and it's not as common in cultivation, but it does quite well for us here, and like Echeveria gibiflora, has very tall inflorescences and lots of them, and flowers over a long period in the fall and winter months. Echeveria Gigantea. Bulbine belongs to the asphodel family, like the aloes and gasterias, but unlike the aloes and gasterias that have narrow tubular flowers, bulbines have a more wide open flower, usually yellow. And they also have a unique character, and that is that the flowers have fuzzy stamens, and that's not a common trait and easily distinguishes them from similar looking plants like, for example, their relatives bulbinellas. A lot of bulbines are smaller than this one. This one's Bulbine Latifolia, meaning wide leaf, and it really lives up to its name. The spires of yellow flowers emerge one after another over a course of months and provide nice yellow punctuation marks in the garden. It's not terribly hardy, and that's why we have it in this bed that's covered in the wintertime, but it's really a delightful plant, Bulbine Latifolia. I've done a lot of aloe hybridizing over the years, and I like yellow flowers, so a number of my hybrids have yellow flowers. This one here is named Aloe GW Miller. We actually put the plant's naming rights up for auction, and the winner opted to name it Aloe GW Miller, so that's what its name is. And it has unusual parentage. One parent comes from Sudan, Aloe Zub, and the other from the island of Socotra in the Indian Ocean, and that one is Aloe sclerosa. So it's two uncommon aloes from uncommon places, but they combine to make this wonderful, highly spotted aloe with curved back leaves and clusters of yellow flowers, Aloe GW Miller. We hope you enjoyed our December What's in Bloom video at the Ruth Bancroft Garden. We'd like to remind you that there is so much more going on in the garden. This is just a selection of plants that are in bloom in this particular month, but there are many, many other things going on, and it's always wonderful to see them in person. Also, there are lots of plants that bloom for brief periods of time that don't make it onto our What's in Bloom video, but that are wonderful to see in person. So come and check it out, and if you have time to look at our website, www.ruthbancroftgarden.org, we have lots of interesting things about programs and about events and about our videos and our plant highlights and so forth. So check that out too.